Welcome back to the Caring Conversations studio, live from the Care Show in Birmingham. We are sponsored by Cornerstone Care Solutions this year, so that's really exciting. And we have our first guest from Cornerstone, Ben Miller. How are you doing?
Nice to see you again. This is my fourth Caring Conversations in a row, I think.
Conversation, yeah. I feel like we're sort of like, it's building a relationship together through the medium of having a conversation live streamed on the internet.
Yeah, we're like proper friends in this day and age. We don't see each other for like most of the year, and then we meet up at the Care Show, and it's like we're best mates.
So obviously you're part of the Cornerstone team.
Yeah.
So how's it going? You've been there for sort of 8 months or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been here since about the 18th of March. So I got thrown in at the deep end. Never done consultancy before, but I've really enjoyed it. It's taken my career to the next level in terms of I've gone from being a registered manager, turnaround manager, into operations, consultancy, quality compliance. It's been eye-opening, but I've really enjoyed my time, and it's been really educational as well.
So sort of turning the clock back a bit and talking about your stuff you were doing as a manager before. So obviously you won some awards and you got an outstanding. So
two outstandings and 15 awards actually.
Okay, 15, right? Okay. Well, I've got 16, so whatever.
damn it.
I was Lucy's got 17, so yeah. I've got one, yeah. Oh, you've just applied. So Cornerstone have just applied for an award, haven't you? So.
Yeah, Cornerstone are up for 3 awards, and they've just had our interview for the 3 Rs this morning. So yeah.
Perfect. Which awards is that?
So that's at the Great British Care Awards in the Southwest Regional. So we've got Mark Horton, who's going to avoid the camera because he doesn't do public speaking. Charlie Light and the company have all been nominated for awards. Lucy's talking and we're looking at her, but no one's going to be able to hear what she's saying.
But recruitment, retention, and
recognition.
There you go. Yeah, perfect. So, and when do you find out about that?
So we've got to go to the awards ceremony in November. I don't know the date, but it's in November sometime. It's at Ashton Gates. Probably the 14th of November. As Lucy's making hand gestures at me. She's calling me an unpleasant name. So that's Ashton Gates Stadium in Bristol. So we're looking forward to that. Yeah. Hopefully the food's better than the last time I was there.
Should be a good night out though, So as long as there's free table wine.
Well, so long as they behave themselves, yeah.
I don't know if they will. Are they going to behave themselves?
They don't look like it.
Well, it's difficult. I have 2 great weaknesses in life: table wine and hotel breakfasts.
Hotel breakfast.
Yeah, you sort of got to try and eat the value of your hotel room in sausages. Yeah, table wine's not good. I don't even like wine, but table wine,
If it's because it's free, isn't it? Yeah, hotel breakfast, that's my weakness as well. Not continental, it's got to be full English. You've got to be able to go up and get your body weight's worth almost of
Yeah, eat the value of the room in sausages. There you go. Yeah. So, right, going back a bit on your career, the outstanding. So was that kind of like an ambition you set for yourself? You were like, right, I'm absolutely focused on getting an outstanding, or did it sort of come about? How did it come about?
When I got given my first job as a registered manager, there was a transitional period of the company I was in I got the job in April, didn't start till June, and in that period, another home in the company got rated outstanding. And I'm a very competitive person, so I just went, well, if they can get it, I can bloody well get it. So that started a journey of me It started out as I just want to get it because I want to prove I'm better than them, and it turns into I want to get it because I want to prove that this is the best team in social care. So became manager in 2019, got the outstanding rating became manager in 2016, got the outstanding rating in 2019, retained the rating in 2021. So
you must have been quite young for a manager, right?
Thank you. I'm still very young now, actually.
I mean, the years are rolling on, Ben. But, that's 10 years ago. So
I was 27 when I got the manager's role. I left that home in 2024, and they lost the outstanding rating about 3 months later. So.
Well, you know where it comes from. So you obviously now you're working for Cornerstone, where part of the role is to kind of go and do sort of mock inspections and do other bits like that. Like it's quite a different way of approaching it.
Yeah, I'm a jack of all trades really. So in my time there, I've done operations. So I've gone into a home that was in administration and supported the manager and the administrators through that process from going into administration to the home selling. And it was a real quick process as well. I mean, that was done in about 6 months. It was quite quick for a home sale, and that was really interesting because I'd only done home management before, not operations. So like I said, that was eye-opening. I've done interim management as well. So alongside doing that, I was then going to another home quite a long way away, 2 days a week, and doing interim management there while their manager wasn't available. And like you said, I've also done what's called mock inspections, support, quality support, quality audits, and kind of measuring their business, their service against the quality, the framework, the new CQC framework, and being able to give ratings. It's a very full-on job, and it takes you've got to wear a lot of hats. Like I said, and that's just 3 things that I've done as part of the company.
So when you are sort of, say, go into an organisation, what are the first things you look at from the perspective of, and I guess each home that you go into is going to have a different kind of point, a different sort of point of crisis, or have different issues. But like, if you were sort of starting from a blank sheet of paper on your first day as manager, what would you be looking at?
So if I'm going in as a manager, or if I'm going in to inspect it?
Let's do both.
So I learnt during my first outstanding CQC inspection that first impressions aren't, whilst they're useful, they're not necessarily the be all and end all, because the CQC inspector had quite a poor impression of our home when she first came in, because initially we were short staffed. So when the inspector arrived, when the inspector arrived, I was actually at Tesco's buying donuts for everybody as a thank you for working so hard that morning. So when I got there, the inspector was already there and was already in a foul mood, because 1, I wasn't there when she got there, and 2, she hadn't been asked for any ID when she got into the door. So she let me know all about that. So I was already fighting a losing battle, or so it seemed. So I'm very aware that first impressions aren't necessarily the be all and end all when it comes to social care and services and settings. When I'm going in, first thing I'm looking out for is smell. Okay. So does the place I'm going into have an odour? I'm listening, because are there lots of call bells going off, especially emergency call bells? And I've gone into a home that was really struggling, and probably in the first half hour I was there, all you could hear was call bells going off. It was ridiculous. So that's normally a sign that a team is struggling, because they're not answering the call bells in a timely fashion. They're either short-staffed, or they've got very challenging residents. If I get a chance to, I'm looking at the people who live in the service and how they appear. Are they well dressed? If they're in a dining room, are they eating, or are they sat asleep with a plate full of food in front of them? Because that's an indicator of good care and good service. And I'm looking at the staff team and how engaging they are. And are they walking past me and trying not to meet my eyes, and are they ignoring me, or are they saying hello, offering me drinks? That was one of the very first things when I became a deputy manager. My predecessor who I learned from, had this thing about whenever someone comes into the home, you offer them a cup of tea. It's the first thing you do is offer them a drink, because it makes them ease, you welcome them. And you'd be surprised at the amount of services that I go to where that isn't an option. I've either got to, I've sometimes driven 2, 3, 4 hours to places, and so you're just gasping for a brew when you get there. And sometimes I've been in places 2 or 3 hours before I'm offered a drink. I take my own drinks, but sometimes I've got to be there 2 or 3 or 4 hours before someone even thinks to offer me something, which is quite, in my opinion, that is good manners. And I know places are busy and things like that, but if I'm there to either manage a service as my first day, or if I'm there to inspect a service, then that's probably the least I deserve, really. And
I suppose I think there's this kind of perception that maybe a CQC inspector is a robot of some kind, and actually they're human beings at the end of the day, and respond in a human way to those different, have the needs that they need. But the smell's an interesting one, because that's a quite sort of emotive kind of idea in the sector, isn't it? That an impression a lot of people have before they visit a care home is that they smell bad. And it can be easy to get to that point, because there's residents that have incontinency issues and things like that. How do you is working on that? Do you see that as a consequence of poor care in and around the other way, or is it can it just be down to having the right scent things? In the right
it's
places,
something to look out for, because depending on the type of service you go into. So, for example, I went into a learning disability service, and one of the upstairs corridors smelt of coffee, very strongly of coffee, and that was because one of the service users, when he was in pain, would throw cups of coffee at the wall.
Yeah.
So I understand that depending on the sort of service you go into, there's a possibility if you go into a dementia nursing home that somebody might have just urinated by the front door. These things happen.
Yeah.
But if you walk into a service and there is already an odour, then that is something to look out for. And if it is isolated to just that area, it could be that there's just that it was just an accident at that point in time and just pure dumb luck that I've walked in at that time. If I'm going around and there are smells, then that's normally an indicator, not necessarily of poor care. It could be of either poor housekeeping, and that might be because they're short-staffed and the domestic team are being made to work as carers to cover the shortfalls, which means they're not able to do their jobs. I managed it. I turned around a service, and initially when I got there, the housekeeping hours, because the home was losing money, had been cut to the bare minimum, and there was no housekeeping on weekends. So people's bedrooms didn't get cleaned on weekends, for example, which is pretty disgusting. So on weekends, on Monday morning especially, you always had pretty bad odours because nobody was cleaning it. So there's that. Also, it could be maybe their supplier. Maybe because if you use, and I won't name suppliers, but if you use certain suppliers, you can contact them and say, we've got an odour around our front door and it's not going, and they will sometimes either send people out or even give you products and go, here, try this, and if it works, use this instead. Whereas some smaller places might not use suppliers. They might go to Tesco's, for example, and buy your bog standard stuff that's not designed to remove constant urination or coffee or whatever from places. So yeah, it's an interesting one, and it's something when I first qualified as a nurse, I worked in a 3-story home, so it had 3 different floors with 3 different. The second floor constantly smelled of urine, no matter what. And when I went and moved into a different service, that was my outstanding service, and periodically I would get staff or visitors who'd been to that home, and I would say, what's the second floor like? And everybody would say, it smells of urine. And we're talking like 10 years later. So, in my opinion, that's a sign that that's something that's just not being addressed by those above, really.
So, I think we've talked enough about urine now.
I never talk about urine enough.
And let's expand out to then that first week. So you've gone in, obviously you do the mock inspections like in a day or, over
day or
the course
2 days,
of a day or 2 days. So if you're interim manager, in that first week, what are you looking at? What's the sort of key indicators of things?
Normally, I'll be asking the provider or whoever's been in charge what they consider their biggest weaknesses, and I'll focus on that. And what I found is it's a 50-50 split between the things they say that are wrong are normally the things that are wrong, and those are things you can work on. Sometimes there's those things they're not right, but there's a bigger underlying problem they're not aware of. An example is I went into a service and their problem was staffing. So they said their biggest issue was they had lots of sickness. It was their biggest issue, and if they could solve that problem, it would solve a lot of problems. So I spent the first week or so working on that, only to realise then later on that they were storing controlled medications inappropriately, and just in general their medication processes were very, very poor. So then I had to switch focus away from staffing and to medication, because they were in breach pretty much, and had to spend a lot of time, good 2 or 3 weeks basically, retraining staff. They had to move their medication room and do a lot of work on that. So it is a 50-50 split between, I said, that sometimes there are bigger problems than what they think. That's generally down to ignorance, and that's normally when you get either managers or providers who they don't stay up to date with social care regulations and things like that.
I mean, there's a lot to keep up with, isn't there?
Well, there is. And you'll go into places and there's no window restrictors, for example, and you'll wonder, well, how is that? Have you avoided not knowing about window restrictors? So, it's a big mix. I mean, I'm seeing now in the more, I don't say problematic homes, homes that are struggling, medication management is always a big issue. Induction's always a big issue, and normally that can tie into medication management, where you're inducting either nurses or senior carers to do medication, but they're not being inducted properly, in which case you're getting an awful lot of
I think someone's coming through the wall.
Awful lot of medication errors as a result of poor induction processes, and those are just 2 things that we're finding.
There's a few people in the audience, so if you've got any questions that you want to ask, let me know, and we can, if you've got any things you want to hear Ben's thoughts on, that would be great. So you've sort of that first week, and then I guess maybe in this current climate with what's going on with CQC, Many places aren't going for outstanding. It's not actually even more difficult than it was because it's really difficult to get inspection.
Allegedly.
Yeah. So are you... and now that maybe that's not the most for the is it, do you still think it's an important thing? Well, obviously it's an important thing, but it's because of the problems that are going on, it's having less impact. Is there ways, is there things that you think that are maybe outside the remit of that you think are really important
I'm a big believer that an attitude of good enough is good enough isn't good enough, and I'm very aware, and in fact walking around today, bearing in mind it's 11:45, I've heard 2 different panels already saying, but we're telling you to do certain things and you're going back to us and going, oh, well, we don't have time to do these things because we're so busy, which I completely understand. But I think if you break down an awful lot of what people who are struggling are doing, a lot of it's firefighting. And yes, you need to firefight. But actually, if you get to the root of the firefighting and stop it at source, there's a brilliant book called Upstream. I can't remember the name of the author now. And it talks about 2 men who were just sat by a river, and a baby floats by. So they get in the river and pick the baby up and take it out. And then as they get out, another baby floats by. So they get out again. And then all these babies start coming down and they're trying to rescue all these babies. And then this guy, one of them gets up and goes to leave. And the guy goes, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm going upstream to find out who's throwing all these flipping babies in the river and telling them to stop.
Yeah.
and that's basically a metaphor, is it?
Yeah.
For
pretty
this.
Pretty dark metaphor.
Well, but it rams the point home, doesn't it? That you need to kind of stop these things at source, and it's all very well firefighting with your safeguardings and your CQC notifications, and this mistake happened and your duty of candour. But actually, if you break it down and go, well, why are we having all these problems? Well, the reason we're having these problems is because we've got staff who shouldn't really be working in social care, for example. We've got a group of people who aren't, they're not trained well enough, they haven't been inducted well enough, and they're working poorly because our induction process isn't suitable and our recruitment processes aren't robust enough. Okay, and then you might go, well, we don't have time to deal with this. Well, actually, if you make the time, and however you do that is entirely up to you. I've been there, I've done it, I've had a recruitment crisis. If you make the time, you resolve it, and it's not a quick process either. There are no quick fixes in social care. It's one of those things you've got to dedicate time to. We've got problems, and like I said, let's just use induction as an example. We need to revamp our entire induction process, but if you make the time to do that, give it 3 months to 6 months, and I'm willing to bet your sickness levels will probably decrease, your quality of care will improve, your residents will be happier, less safeguardings, less CQCs, notifications, less challenging behaviours, and all of that from improving your induction process. And so that's just one thing. And the amount of services I've gone into who I will say, what's your induction process? And they will go, well, they start, I talk at them for an hour, and they go around with the maintenance man and do a fire walk around, and then they get put with a senior carer, and they were with a senior carer for like 2 shifts shadowing, and then that's it, they're on the floor and they're part of the team. Oh, and they do the care certificate as well. That's not good enough. And then in those situations, I've had, like, for example, they've done that, the fire alarm's gone off, and they don't know what to do, and they've been there 6 weeks, and the manager's putting their hair out going, well, they've done the fire walk around. Yeah, they did the fire walk around on day 1 when they were really intimidated, and they were super anxious, and there's a man walking around with them going, right, there's a fire exit, the fire alarm goes off, we go here, there's a fire exit. They're not taking any of that in. Yeah. So you're putting your residents at risk. Yes, you should have a fire walk around on day 1, but when do you review that? Do you review it at week 12, or do you review it maybe in week 3 or 4 when they're settled in a bit more? And it's little things like that people need to think of. And when I changed, and I said, I'm talking from experience, I had a recruitment crisis where I would bring people on board and they would start, and within like 2 weeks they would leave. Or I would get a bad vibe from them during the interview process, but they can work Saturday nights and I really need someone to work Saturday nights, so I'm going to take them on. And then they're not working, it's not working out, but I still need someone to work Saturday nights and they're here, so I'm just going to tough this one out. And it doesn't work, because you end up with someone who is not suitable for the job, who's making all these mistakes, getting your staff's backs up. Your staff are going, well, I don't really want to work today because she's on, so I'm going to phone in sick. Or they probably could, they feel rough, they could come to work, but she's on, I don't really like working with her, so I'm going to phone in sick. And I revamped everything. And I even to the point of having a 3-person interview panel for interviews where you had to have 2 yeses to get through. To, if you had two if you had a no, and even if I had a no and a maybe, it was that's it.
Which I guess can be quite scary for a manager if half of the people you invite to interview don't turn up, right?
Well,
Or if that there'll be a lot of places, but I suppose again it comes down to this idea of like firefighting. So you're in a situation where you're desperate, but actually sometimes you need to then stop and go back up to the start of your process to say, why am I stressed? Why am I desperate? What if I don't have time, what jobs can I give to other people that mean that I can get the time to do this?
Yeah, and I think as well, it's interesting you say there about like, well, if people aren't showing up for interview, but there are things you can do to not guarantee people show up, but there are things. I mean, and I learned this by looking at LinkedIn and advice people give. Do you call people on day of the interview if someone's due to come for an interview? I mean, for example, just for this, I've had 2 emails this morning off Caring Conversations going, oh, by the way, you've got to come here at 11:30 for your interview. And I think if people get that, do they get a text message at first thing in the morning? Your interview's at 12:30. Do they get a phone call at 10 o'clock? Hey, I'm just ringing in to make sure you're okay. Are you still coming? Is there anything you need? Is there any information you need? And sometimes I've had people kind of be like, I don't know where your front door is. But that's fine. If you come into the car park, it's on your left. You've got to go into the porch area. Those sorts of things can put people at ease and also set you apart from other places. So it's looking at, and these things that I'm suggesting, they're not even kind of really dramatic. It's just things that people don't do. And delegation, like you said, is a really big one. And for inductions, when you start, it might be a case of you've only got one person who you feel is really competent to induct people. You might have to put a lot of pressure on them, and that might involve sitting down with them and going, look, I'm really sorry, but in order to make the team stronger, every shift you work for the next 12 weeks, you're going to probably have a new member of staff with you.
I kind of think when I recruit people in my company, they're not doing any actual work for at least a week. Right, like to just give you a chance to go through everything. And I know, again, that can be really difficult where like you're short of someone on a Saturday night and you think, oh, crikey, I need, and in theory you're maybe recruiting someone who knows what they're doing, but just, maybe not a week, but taking that time properly to make sure that person...
Yeah, I mean, when I went in my outstanding home, my new recruits were supernumerary for 4 to 6 weeks. But I know that a lot of people, when I say that, they kind of go, of course, we can't afford that. Totally get it. In my opinion, if you've never worked in social care before, to do 2 shadow shifts and then be expected to be counted in the numbers, inverted commas, is you're asking for trouble. I mean, one thing that I used to do, which bigger companies can do, but again, a lot of smaller companies can't, I used to make them work in every department as well. So if you come to work in my care home, you spend 4 to 6 weeks supernumerary, but you do a shift as a kitchen assistant, you do a shift in the laundry, you do a shift cleaning, you do a shift following the nurses around. So you also get an appreciation. And the one thing that did, which a lot of care homes probably get, is you get the laundry and the domestic team kind of going like, oh, nobody appreciates us, they all treat us like crap and all of that. Since when I started doing that, you got a lot more respect for the laundry team, and people would come back and go, oh my God, I had no idea it was so hard working in the laundry. I have got so much respect. You're on your feet all the time. I didn't even have a break. So you would get that respect as well, and they would learn how frustrating it would be, for example, to wash, dry, iron, and hang someone's clothes up, only to find it screwed up in a ball, still clean, but in the dirty laundry because someone had gone in someone and gone, what would you like to wear, this one or this one? And the one they hadn't chosen, they just went, I can't be bothered to hang it back up, I'm just going to put it with all the dirty clothes. So you get an appreciation, and it's those little bits that can just make a big difference to teams.
Yeah. Sorry, I was about to have a sneeze.
I think your eyes have started to water.
My eyes are gone, haven't they? But I think it's gone. It's gone. So, but I might randomly sneeze.
I thought I was bringing you to tears or something. It's not that emotional.
We're not that
yet,
emotional,
anyway.
No. So, okay. I mean, it's really interesting that idea of like just really easing someone into that first process, and and I guess you think that's a critical for success overall.
I think it's for everyone, and. In all departments, and even your new managers. And I've noticed recently I've been asked about management inductions and things like that, which is quite scary when you think a lot of providers don't have induction paperwork or proper inductions for managers.
You should have like a almost like a booklet to work through.
You should. And I know there's a lot of stuff on Skills for Care, but I've worked with I mentor like new managers, and it is quite scary the amount of people who are kind of like, you're good, cool, all right, well, if you need, just give us a call and we'll help you out. And then they come back in and go, well, why isn't this done, and the manager's like, because I didn't know I didn't know I had to do it. And I get phone calls for silly I get people who I mentor and they're phoning me up going, oh, is this a safeguarding? And they'll run the situation through with me, and I'll be like, yes, that's a safeguarding. And they'll be like, oh, thank God, because I didn't know. And you're like, how have you not known if you've not done safeguarding? And, you haven't done your level 4 or level 5 at safeguarding. Your provider should be encouraging you to do these things, which is a question I asked on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, which was, whose responsibility is it to ensure the ongoing education of the manager? Is it the provider, or is it the manager themselves? And it was a 50-50 split, which I agree with. When in my outstanding service, I would go to the Care Show. I would do what I could I would attend loads of webinars, anything to educate me. But I've gone into services where managers don't know about they're not good on social media or those sorts of things. They don't know about skills for care. So the provider, it's their service. In my opinion, they should also be going, hey, have you seen this webinar that's coming up? I think you should go on it. Those sorts of things to help them educate themselves. Because, as a manager, you might get told to do your level 5. Level 5 is a good qualification, but it doesn't prepare you at all for management. And a lot of people who go into management might have done it as a deputy manager 5 or 6 years ago when it was out of date. So, there's a lot to be said for training and education of managers, and that really does need to be improved.
But getting that induction booklet, you should have. Yep. So for my team, I have it's probably, I think it's about 20 pages, but it's different bits of information and information which links to other information, and then it's got a tick list at the end of it to say, right, have we showed you how to log into your emails? Have we given you a key? Have we done, all the different bits and pieces that you might need to make sure that person knows where the stuff that they are going to need is. Do you know where the aprons are? Do you know where the gloves are? Do you know what the procedure is if X happens? Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be complicated. I mean, you say about a booklet. I mean, I'm a big fan of booklets during inductions, and when I created an induction booklet, we used to have new people used to have 2, 3 if you were a brand new carer, because you'd have the care certificate as well. But I would have an induction. There would be a booklet that I would have to work through with them. And then there would be a booklet they would have to work through with their senior carer, and they were totally different. Mine was, do you know what, you logged into your emails, do you know how to do your timesheet, those sorts of thing. And for the senior carer one, it was wash and dress, going out on trips with people, documenting care, those sorts of things. And then, you would say for someone who's full-time, 12 weeks, is this booklet signed off? Is this booklet signed off? Bearing in mind as well, I would have regular meetings with them as well. For managers, though, it is scary the amount of times a provider, again, they might have an induction booklet, but they don't actually follow through with it. And you'll go into services, and where I'll say to the manager, like, how long have you been here for? And say 4 months. Okay, what induction have you had? I'd be like, oh, well, they told me they were going to have an induction meeting with me when I started. Okay, when did you have that? Oh, I haven't had it yet. And well, there's no point in having it now. You're 4 weeks into you're 4 weeks in. It's quite scary, and I think this is one of the reasons why we get such a big turnover of managers. And I mean, I went and worked in a turnaround home, so the home was requires improvement. I turned it to good, and the provider took me on because they were very honest about the fact they wanted to basically let the home run itself, so they could just start an Airbnb business. They wanted to buy up places, do them up, and rent them out as Airbnbs. So they were very much like, we don't really want to get involved. So day one they were with me, and then they were like, you've got this. I'm a competent manager. Even I found that quite hard because you're thrown into a completely strange situation with people who are like, who the hell are you? It's quite high risk as well for you, from your perspective. It's quite a lot of pressure on you. And I suppose, at least in that scenario, if you're going to do that, give them what they need and what they ask for. So if your manager says, I need a new medication system, get them the new medication system. Don't cheap out on the things that they say they need, because that's what they're going to need to make it run properly.
Practice what you preach as well, because if you're a leader, not just a manager or a provider, but if you're a leader and you're expecting something from someone else, but you're there making it clear, like, I just want the home to run itself. You can't expect the person who's working under you to have any sort of skin in the game almost. If you're my boss and you're there like, just phone me at head office or whatever, where's my incentive to go and get outstanding or just improve things? Really, no. You're coasting, so I'm going to coast as well.
Okay, I've got a final question for you, Ben. What's your if you're a biscuit, what type of biscuit would you be?
So I'd be a hobnob. Have you seen that Peter Kay sketch where he's like rich tea, you dunk them and they melt, or your hobnobs are like the SAS of biscuits. That's me, because most people would get dunked in a cup of tea and they'd just melt and flake and just be sludge at the bottom. You just keep dunking me and I just keep going, like, I've got this, keep going. Especially in a crisis situation, I'm pretty good in a crisis. And I've turned that quite serious. I think that was supposed to be quite a funny question, and I've turned it quite serious.
It could be deep and meaningful.
Not a chocolate hobnob, because you can't dunk those in tea, because then the chocolate melts and it goes everywhere and your teeth ruined.
Unless you lick the chocolate off the top, you can do that.
It's not a bad
we're getting into all sorts of weird stuff when we do that, though, aren't we?
Pretty much.
Okay, Hobnob, resilient, hardcore.
There you go.
I like it.
Hardcore, there you go. I'm hardcore.
Thank you for coming. We're going to have a little lunch break now. So,
brilliant.
Brilliant. Any questions from the audience? No, you're all good? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for watching.
Yeah, thank you. A nice little audience here. So it's been nice. Yeah, brilliant. Well, I'll see you throughout the day, Ben.
Yeah, we will do. Thanks a lot,
Nice one. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We will be back. We're going to have a break for about an hour, so we'll be back after lunch.